So I'm Simon Delhunty Forrest. I'm the Director for Planning and Development for Birmingham City Council. I've been with Birmingham since I was 16, okay? And this is for you boys at the back. I left school with 2 O-levels. My parents said, you ain't going into university. I had a choice. The only thing I was good at was drawing. And the choice was I either go on the tools with my dad and a carpenter or go into a drawing office. I didn't fancy going on a building site. Didn't fancy it. It's all that, you know, it's a tough job. It's a good job, though, as well. And I found myself working for Birmingham. There was no plan, but Birmingham saw something in me, right? And they put me through uni. So I'm a qualified architect, 9 years part-time study. And you would have missed the conversation earlier about apprenticeships. Mine was an apprenticeship. You know, I was very fortunate that one day release, 9 years part-time study, paid, and materials and field trips to study to become an architect. I'm also a chartered town planner as well. Birmingham put me through that. So opportunities there, it's just when they are there and to be awake for them. What school are you guys from? And where's that? Cradley Heath. Another lot of Villa fans then, brilliant. Right, let's go introduce the rest of the audience. Let's pass the mic.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Great to be here. Is it still morning? I think it's still morning. My name is Damini Sharma. I'm the CEO of the OM Group, and my journey into construction started when I was 16 as well, when my dad landed me on a construction site for 2 apprenticeships, one in scaffolding and one in bricklaying. Haven't done it in a long time, as you can probably tell from the hands, but it was an absolute baptism of fire. Drove my passion and my desire and my love of construction. I still see it as like, it's magic, right? We take all these raw materials, we take all these drawings, these designs, hand-drawn previously, right? And we make them into something that is so incredible. This room that we're sitting in, the roads that we drove on, the bridges that we passed under, the houses that we live in, they're all created from these raw materials that just didn't exist until they did exist. And that magic is still what inspires me to come into construction every single day and talk to the young people that we're here for today, as well as all of our fellow professionals and everybody else that we've got in the room. So I think that's me done.
Thank you very much. I'm Brian, and Brian Mullen. I'm from Marins, and we're a planning consultancy, a planning and design consultancy. So we have planning consultants who work in the private sector, so that we work with Simon and colleagues in the public sector. My own background is that I had started in local government, became RTPI qualified. We have a graduate scheme in Marins, and we have planning policy experts, landscape architects, master planners. We have socioeconomic brain boxes, people who do economic analysis. We have heritage experts, but it's all about shaping places and working with environmental professionals to shape places and to make spaces that we live in and that we work in. So it was great to see everybody today, and we're looking forward to engagement, but thanks very much.
Morning all. My name is David Brown. I'm a project manager. I work for a consultancy called Pareto, and we do project management. Just bring it closer. Yeah. Is that better? Yeah. Cool. So David Brown, I'm a project manager. I work for a project management consultancy, so we have project managers and quantity surveyors. We do mostly buildings, big buildings, some of which you might know. My route into the industry, I got lucky because I love what I do, but it was not through any particular advice or support. I needed a job, and the biggest local employer at the time, I lived in Wolverhampton, was Tarmac, who were a construction company. And so that was the route I took. So I got lucky with that. And the things I enjoy about my job is just the diversity. And a few people have said it already, but there's nothing more rewarding than walking past a large building and you were involved in some part in the team that led to its construction.
Thank you very much. My name's Eddie Wrench. I work at Birmingham City Council. I'm a major projects officer, so I oversee some of the large redevelopment sites and urban extensions within Birmingham. I think my route into planning really was more straightforward, I guess, in terms of doing an undergraduate and master's degree in planning. But it was really for a love of the built environment, making sure we shape the places we live. How can you influence those spaces, make them safe, inviting places, was really my inspiration. And I did go on to do an urban design master's as well later in my career, because I was interested in that aspect of it and really influencing how those places come forward and how that will feed into my town planning aspect in development management. But yeah, it's really, I manage also the graduates at Birmingham City Council, so getting them on board through various routes and encouraging them, mentoring them really through into the planning built environment forum really. So yeah, good to speak here. Thank you.
Well, good morning all. My name's Eddie Hughes. My folks came over to England from Ireland, so I grew up in an Irish community in Birmingham, and just about everybody in the Irish community worked in construction. Everybody I knew growing up was a plasterer, electrician or something like that. So I sat in a JCB for the first time in my life when I was 11. I got excited by the idea that I could work on a building site, perhaps driving a JCB and be in out of the rain. But my folks didn't want that, so I went to university, did civil engineering and directed where those JCBs went instead. So, and since then I've spent the rest of my life in either the construction, management or maintenance of housing, which also included, I'm excited to say, because of the school in the top right-hand corner there, a spell as the MP for Walsall North. So I was the MP for Bloxwich and also spent 18 months as a housing minister as well. So I've got some policy experience in this area.
Cheers, thank you. So you've got quite a mix of experts. But look, I don't like doing things by the script, okay? So I'm going to ask a question, 2 questions for the boys first. At the boys' school, can anyone tell me what an architect is? Don't be shy. Do you generally not know, or is it a case of, brilliant, mate? Very good. I'm really pleased you've said that, because the last time I asked that question, a school, Small Heath School, from year 7 to year 13, thanks for doing it, really brave, didn't get the answer other than, I know who you are, mate, you're Indiana Jones and you chase dinosaurs. So I'm going to ask the other lot, what's a planner? What's a town planner? Very good. Very, very good. I'm really impressed. Really, really impressed. Thank you for doing that. Because it's important that if you're here, and it's all right having all these brilliant experts and all that there, it's actually understanding what the roles really are. And you know about it at school, because we talked about social value and stuff like that today. But it's also a bit about the school being responsible for telling the young people what our industry actually is and what we do. Because not everyone's academic, but people are great with their hands. So anyway, back on piece. Right, can you hold that for me a minute, Evan? Right, thank you. If you had to name the 2 or 3 projects or developments happening in the West Midlands right now that will create the most opportunity, Midlands right now that will create the most opportunity for young people, what would they be? Eddie, you can start.
Well, I am a member of the Chartered Institute of Building, and one of the things that they do is when you qualify in any discipline, that's a bit like learning to drive a car. That's just really the start of your learning. You then need to apply what you've learned in school or college and turn that into reality on a building site. So I continue my learning through my membership of the Chartered Institute of Building. So I recently visited the huge regeneration project that's going on in Coventry with Hill Group. And what's interesting about a project of that size is that the people employed on it know that they're going to have work for at least the next 5 or more years. So that continuity, that security of employment is great to have. Sometimes you don't always get that in the construction industry. But when you see the work that they're doing, they are basically redesigning a huge part of the centre of Coventry with housing, roads, bridges, all sorts of bits. So anything you are interested in, including landscaping and so on, anything you are interested in construction, there is a job for you there on that site, and it's a great place to go and have a look at the range of opportunity that's available to you in construction.
Cheers, Eddie. The same to you.
Thanks, Simon. Well, I'd say there's so much different developments going on throughout the whole of the West Midlands, really. It's difficult to pick out individual ones because I think it's a collective building for the future across the area, really. So I think there is a upturn in that, and hopefully, more building and regeneration will take place. But if I had to pick out individual projects, I would say one I'm working on at the moment is the Birmingham Sports Quarter. So really the regeneration of most of east of Birmingham, how that's coming forward, a very deprived area, certainly within the West Midlands, if not the whole country as well. And bringing that forward, we're talking about a project that's going to last 10, 20, 30 years, really, if all the vision comes forward. And as part of that, I think we spoke about social value earlier and how we can get young people into the trades within it and also working on site there. Given the length of it, what skills can we bring to that area which maybe they didn't have access to before? So I think that part of Birmingham has particularly been cut off from a lot of the access to jobs and opportunities that maybe other areas of Birmingham have had. So open up the walking and cycling for them to even access jobs, as well as moving into built environments. So we're talking about new stadium designs, people who want to move into sports science as well. The walking, cycling opportunities, active travel opportunities to work there. And also working with organisations like Homes England, the West Midlands Combined Authority, who all influence these projects that really have influence way beyond their red line. We're talking about the new metro line will go past the sports quarter towards the airport, and it really just opens up, I think, the area to have that access to other types of jobs. So it might not even be within the sports quarter necessarily, but the knock-on effects of those will hopefully be felt and have a visible impact on people's lives in that area, because I think a lot of probably East Birmingham feel neglected over the years in terms of the amount of development that's happened in the city centre, the south of the city as well. So opening up those opportunities and making sure that there's a visible aspect that we're improving park accesses, we're improving schools in the area, access to swimming pools and things like that. I think when people can see those things coming out of the ground, they can see that it is for them. It's not a case of gentrification and bringing in people from outside, that those people can work and live in those areas. That I think developments such as that, or even Smithfields, other ones that might take place in Druids Heath, and other areas of the more deprived areas of the city, I think is where you see the benefit out the ground. And once people can get on board with that, I think a lot of the negative side of planning, which isn't so much I think in Birmingham, but certainly in rural areas, about having imposition of houses on them, development on green sites, I think once we can start seeing the benefits and what comes with those and how they're influenced and how we come to those decisions, I think that's where we can really influence and create more of a positive outlook around our profession. Thank you.
Thank you. So whilst most of the work that my experience relates to is buildings and urban, around probably the project that I would highlight would be HS2 and Curzon Street. I find it's part of my commute and I find it absolutely fascinating, partly because of the scale of what's going on at the moment, but probably what's worth thinking about is a lot of what's happening now where you're seeing things built, which is very much civil engineering. A lot of that relates back to years and years of work, of working out where things should go. So if you're good at geography, you might have been part of that process. The legal implications of how do we get the land. So if you do law or anything like that, or business studies, that might relate to that. And then once it gets to construction stage, once the Curzon Street station is done, it'll be a catalyst for lots of other developments around it. So don't just look out for the amazing civil engineering, which is enough at the moment. Pay attention to what goes on around it once it's built. Businesses, buildings, things will happen around it. And all of those will relate back to the world that I know a little bit more about, which is big buildings, city centre developments. And all of those need architects, engineers, to get to the point where you design things. And then when it gets to finding a contractor and getting things built, that's when it relates to the trades as well. So probably Curzon Street. And I just, even though it's not central to what I do, I find that absolutely fascinating.
Thank you, David. It's you mentioned the trades there, and that's the that's normally the big constraint for us, isn't it? I know you're going to come on to it. We've got a for the young people in the room. When you ask the question, Simon, about what are the big projects, HS2 is the big one. It has huge ramifications. It pulls in tremendous amounts of resource, and when we look at the back row, this is a project that's going to go on for the next 10, 15 years. There are other projects like the Smithfield Master Plan, £1.1 billion. And again, we're looking at the back row thinking, how are you going to help deliver this? You know, we need people who are going to step up and support on the trade, support in the professional services. So we need electricians, we need plumbers, we need grounds workers, we need architects, we need landscape architects, we'll need planners. So there's huge opportunity. Other projects, Solihull Town Centre, £150 million investment, big numbers. Coventry was mentioned there, £450 million investment. These are big numbers, huge amounts of money being spent. And that's before we go to the second tier, the work that needs to be carried out across everywhere else. So houses have to be built. We've got a tremendous level of need for housing and where we're going to live. So yeah, there's lots of exciting opportunity for you guys in the back row, and lots of stuff happening, lots of things happening. There is a bit of negativity around the economy, but in the end, there's a strategic requirement and a need for us to deliver the infrastructure, the retail space, the homes, and the commercial space that we all need to live and work. So lots going on.
Thank you. I think everyone's touched upon the main projects that really stand out in the West Midlands. I'm Coventry born and bred, so Coventry Town Centre it's like seeing your childhood grow up and move forward. I'm seeing the town centre evolve over decades. I have got decades now, and it's incredible to see how that's evolved. But I just want to, we talked about like other projects that might come up and how the back row and the students that we've got in this room will be the people that take those projects forward. I had the pleasure of meeting Ormiston Forge in my kick-off session earlier on today, and I've got a whole design team there of architects, interior designers, engineers, electricians, carpenters. I've got the entire spectrum of the design teams that are going to build those projects. You talked about the Smithfield project that's coming up. We've got all this greenbelt requisition that's going on, and this housing strategy that has been talked about. You know, you mentioned the economy, right? Yeah. This government said they're going to build 1.5 million homes. It's probably not going to happen in this governmental term, but we've got to do our damnedest to make sure that we're pushing on that actual target to help make it happen, irrespective of what we think of the government. Apologies if there's any political people in the room, Eddie. But joking aside, there's also the other side of construction that we haven't mentioned. There's big projects, those are big new build construction projects, exciting projects, but then there's also all the remediation stuff. There's also all the cladding, everything that you guys have seen in the news about cladding, about all of the problems that we've had since Grenfell, all of the problems that we've had with the concrete structures that were built, RAC. We've talked about that over the years. There's all the insulation scandals, all the different things that have happened that are major, major projects that have got big, significant investment. So we are losing a massive part of the construction industry due to age and ageing out of the industry, but we're actually gaining a whole new youth movement. All of these incredible people that are here today at the conference and at Summit that are going to be entering the industry, and all of you guys, I'm speaking to you directly now, all the students in the room, this is your industry for the taking. All the projects that we've got coming up are the projects that we want to see you on. We're here to lead the way. We're here to guide you, but you guys are going to be the ones that are making the difference, not us.
No, that's a really, really good point, and it is about that future. What I'm really intrigued about, because I've heard you speak many times before, is just to give a bit of background about your journey and how you've arrived, and what would make any of these young people in the room want to do what you're doing, sitting where you are in the next 20 years.
Goodness. Okay, I'll keep it clean, yeah? So basically, as I started off by saying earlier, everybody, I want to say everybody in my business, but everybody in the industry since the awards, because I also co-host the Building the Future Awards, knows my dad as Pops. So Pops dropped me on a construction site. So I went to secondary school a year early. Did my GCSEs and A-levels early, and I was a little bit of a tearaway, shall we say. Pops thought it would be the best thing for me to go onto a construction site with all these incredible people doing all of these wonderful things, and that actually that would straighten me out. Doesn't seem like it would have worked, but boy, howdy did it. Honestly. So I learned how to do scaffolding for 6 months. I learned all of the swear words I now know in those 6 months from the scaffolding contractors. And then I learned how to lay bricks, and I learned what back-breaking work that is, but what worthwhile work that is, what incredibly precise work that is, and how fundamental all of the trades are to everything that we talk about, that we do. We've had, don't get me wrong, I'm going to say it, a brown woman in construction. So don't get me wrong, in the early days of my career, I ticked a lot of boxes. And I was in a lot of rooms because people needed me to be in those rooms because I met the ethnic quota and the diversity quota. But now we're actually seeing an industry that is taking diversity seriously. We've got some incredible people in this room. For the students, and in particular, Ormiston, I said this to you guys earlier, right? And I'm going to say this to Block Switch. I was in the kickoff rooms. You guys have 3 things that you have to do today. Learn something new, meet someone new, and learn about a career that you never knew about, right? I'm going to introduce you to 2 other incredibly inspirational people that are sitting in the audience today, and that is Sue and Renee. They are 2 incredibly inspirational women in construction, and I'm calling them out simply because, guys and girls, students here, they can be one of your 2 people that you come and meet, right? They have absolutely got a journey and a story to tell. So whilst you've mentioned my story, their story is just as incredible, and so is the story of everybody sitting here. Eddie, as housing minister, honestly, the guy made more difference in 18 months than the Labour Party have made so far to date. So, sorry.
On the back of that, Eddie, you can speak for yourself on this one. Your journey.
Well, I say my journey is just, yeah. I said about growing up in the Irish part of Birmingham. I mean, I've got 5 brothers, and I think everybody that we looked up to. And I think that's part of the journey, which is you can't want to be it unless you see it. So when your question you raised at the start saying, do you know what an architect is? Do you know what a planner is? If you've never come across an architect or a planner, then that's kind of difficult. So until I went to secondary school, I went to an excellent grammar school in Birmingham. But for the first 11 years of my life, I would not have come across a single lawyer, a single architect. That was simply not in our social circle. And so it was easy for me to aspire to do something in construction because every man, not just every man that I knew, but the people I looked up to most in life were the people who ran their own bricklayer gangs or ran their own JCB hire service. Those are the people who appeared to be earning some money and making a success of their lives. So that's what I aspired to do. Our job with an event like this is to try to give you the opportunity that I didn't have growing up and expose you to all the many disciplines that exist within construction. Almost whatever your interest is in life, there is a job in construction that would align with it. So if you think, I don't want to go out on a building site, I don't fancy laying bricks in the cold, that's not construction. There's just so many more elements to it. And so listen to Darmini, because meeting new people, learning new things is a great way to expand your horizon and give you a better choice as to what you might do with your future. And all of the people who are here today are desperate to try and help you along that journey because we want to see you working on the projects that we've all talked excitedly about.
Cheers, Eddie. I'm going to put my political hat on. Sorry. But again, my experience of this is it's one about not knowing what an architect is because you haven't been exposed to one. I think there is a responsibility for the education system to be doing better, and not at college level or university level, at school, because not everyone is academic, are they? So I think there's got to be a responsibility on the schools to do that. And I don't know, sir, if that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm head of careers at our school, so I push that quite a lot at our place. I think we do more than I've known any other school do to try and push the range of careers onto kids and increase their exposure as much as possible.
That's really good to hear because as it's been mentioned, the trades is so hard at the moment. You'll know your mum and dad and your aunts and uncles, they can't get a plasterer or a plumber. The opportunities are there to do that. It's not just about the professional bit. Right, Dave, I'm going to ask you a question, mate. Okay. So are organisations in this region actually opening doors for the next generation? Or is it still a case of who you know?
I think if I come at it from the small SME, which everyone in that small businesses, which whilst you'll be aware of lots of the big industry players, a lot of the work in terms of professional services, design and trades is done by small businesses. So the need is there. There's a disconnect between we need to recruit, we need to train people to help us grow, we need to replace people like me who will be retired in 10 years' time. And there's a skill shortage, a need to recruit, and there's a load of young people who need opportunities, jobs to get into an exciting career. But there's a gap of the process in between. So as a small business, one of the things that we're keen to do often is take on board people for work experience. It's the right thing to do, and for a business, to be blunt, it's an extended job interview as well. We'd look to take people on apprenticeships and all the different pathways, but sometimes it's quite difficult to know where those opportunities are. I think I've learnt more in the first 15 minutes of walking through the door here with all the exhibitors than I have through researching for this and recruiting for 10 or 15 years, to be honest. Now, so it's not actually that hard, is it? It's about creating this environment, getting people in the right space. So the difficulties for small businesses in terms of recruitment often is we don't know where the best candidates may be. We don't know the pathways. We need help understanding the administration required, the insurance required, etc., etc. And none of this is particularly difficult. But if you've got a business to run, but you've got opportunities, a little bit of help and support to bridge that gap would be ideal. So I do know a lot of the people that we've recruited it's where it's worked and we've taken on board young apprentices. It's the most rewarding form of recruitment, to recruit a young person, to see them grow. But it's also the hardest piece of recruitment because you're recruiting based on the potential for what somebody can become rather than a track record. And so where it's worked well, it's been tremendously rewarding, but we haven't always got it right. And sometimes it's because a young person's made a decision about a career path that wasn't based on a lot of support, a lot of understanding, and the ones that have been successful, it was great to hear what you said about the careers advice you gave, but the ones that have been most successful is because a family member worked in construction or they live next to a mentor who could help them make the right choice. So I think it's probably two elements to it. It's probably making sure that small businesses are supported in understanding where and how to do it, and it's not just a financial thing. It's just, the administration, the access. And then secondly, making sure that when we do get access to candidates, in some way the pool of people that are put in front of us or that we go and seek actually know that this is for them. Okay.
And Brian, from your perspective, in terms of like the RTPI, have them doors been opened?
Well, they were. And we had the apprenticeship levy. There have been restrictions introduced on that. I don't mean to put everyone to sleep on this, but I do need to tackle it because it's very important to us. The RTPI is the Royal Town Planning Institute. So that is the chartered organisation for town planners, such as myself and Simon. And you're absolutely right. Town planners, they shape places. They decide where buildings go effectively, or more specifically, Simon decides where they go, and we we help our clients direct them, and we negotiate and engage with local authorities. On the apprenticeship point, I think that the impact of the levy being diminished for between 16 and 21-year-olds is a problem, and the RTPI is lobbying to have it reintroduced. In Marans, our organisation, we ran straight to the apprenticeship levy, and the effect that it's had, Simon, is that it has put in place for our organisation, which is maturing. 5-6 years ago we had 20 fee earners, and today we've got about 120 fee earners. But we need a very healthy, able and enthusiastic group of young people coming through the organisation every year. We need to have that. So irrespective of whether the levy is available or not, we have a business requirement to make sure that that happens, so that we've got a healthy, sustainable organisation with succession in place. And that's the point. I would never have envisaged being in the position that I'm in. I'm an economic migrant, effectively. You know, Eddie, you come over from Ireland, and everyone's had their own journey. I've been very fortunate, of course, but you make your own luck, and if you're enthusiastic, you get exposed to these opportunities. Any discipline which you choose to work in, whether it's the trades, whether it's an architect or any other discipline, it's about being enthusiastic about it. And you don't always get it right. You know, you have to, sometimes you have to try things, and you turn on your heel and try something else. I started off as an architect at Queen's University, and within 3 months found out it wasn't for me, because I just couldn't put up with the 1 o'clock in the morning at the drawing board. It was incredibly tough. And I noticed that the town planner spent a lot more time in the pub. So that was that was interspersed, of course, with time on building sites as well. But in terms of opportunity, from an RTPI perspective, I think local authorities are going to suffer more than anyone else. I think there's a role for the private sector to provide support, because we've seen the flight of a lot of planners from the private sector, from the public sector into the local authorities. And of course, Marans and other private consultancies are both a beneficiary and victim of that. We need to see that skills gap, and the next generation of planners come forward. And so, there is a role for central government, but also we can only really control what we do. So from our perspective, we've made it a priority to bring young people into the business.
Thank you very much. And Eddie, from your experience working for Birmingham City Council, particularly in the comments Brian's got to say, what are Birmingham City Council's pathways for young people in terms of planning?
Thank you. Really echoing that in terms of the difficulties, I think, with local authorities, particularly in planning. It's certainly an ageing profession at the moment. There's a lot of long lifers who've been there for a long time, and I think because of difficulties over the last few years, there's definitely gaps which have arisen now, and the difficulty of finding people, particularly experienced people, is particularly difficult at local authorities, with people leaving as well because of other opportunities and the pressure that comes with working at local authorities. That being said, we have been utilising what's called Pathways to Planning graduates, which started last year. And this is from people who have not necessarily come from a built-formed development background, don't necessarily have degrees in it, but have an interest in shaping places, in terms of improving areas, improving lives, the sustainability of areas, how they're changing and adapting, and of maybe going to bring aspects from a legal background, or it might be a retail background or an environmental background to town planning. And I think we've looked at that from a local authority point of view, and it is a case of bringing people that are enthusiastic through. We need those people who really want to make a change, and ones that we hope as well that we can provide a career path from, not necessarily having to develop them and then they move on to the private sector, but that they can stay within the local authority because they can see the impact that they can have at that level. I think the beauty of local authority over private consultancy is that you do get a lot more autonomy with projects. So you get to oversee huge stuff. I mean, I oversee the Langley Urban Extension in Sutton Coalfields, which is 5,500 dwellings. The Birmingham Sports Quarter, so a new 60,000 stadium for Birmingham City. Another 1,000 houses, university areas, training pitches. You know, if you're interested in sport, and those elements can come into it, and parks. So I think, yeah, where we're looking particularly is that next generation, how we can encourage. Do we need to go into schools, things like this, really, to show that path? Because I think going back before, you know, I would have never known what a planner was before, no idea what it would have been. My background's from geography, so it's looking at how places are shaped, people movement, where they come from, how they've populated certain areas and how they move. And it was only really through my parents pushing me to get a job at the end of the day that I sort of fell into town planning and see how you could influence it through that. And it works on all different scales. So we're talking about very large projects there, but it can be a street, it can be your own street, how you look at it. Is parking affecting it? Is it busy? Is there shops nearby? Do people walk enough? Are the routes safe? It's looking at those different aspects from your own eye, not necessarily a planner eye, but just, do I feel safe? Are things where I need them? Do I have access to jobs? And showing that to young people moving up, really, that they can inform those decisions and put it forward. And I think, yeah, the real benefit out of planning comes forward when you see them at the ground. You see the benefits that affordable housing have to people in areas, to improvements to parks, sports facilities, all these things. We get to see them firsthand, and you've had your fingerprints on that, really. But it is working within a massive organisation in terms of Birmingham City Council that we work with. So we work with health professionals, we work with people who look at flooding, climate change, and I think as planners we see ourselves as very much looking at every sort of profession and how do we pull them all together and influence and make those decisions, which can be difficult. And I think going back before, it has a very negative perception, I think, in the public's eye, certainly I say in rural areas, planning. And I think the RTPI does work very hard to try and change that narrative, but it's very difficult. So I think showing people and certainly people coming through the changes that they can make and the positive aspects will just help those next generations and see where planning can really make a difference is where we put him forward, and that's what we try and do at Birmingham City Council.
Cheers, Eddie. I don't know if it's me, but I sense two digs in there, one from Brian and one from Eddie. I mean, look, architects party harder than planners. They party harder than planners. And I know that from experience, being both. And who are you referring to? Been at the council a long time? Yeah. I mean, I might be grey, but it's working with the colleagues in this room. Look, I want to put the school kids on the spot. I want you to have a think of a question when we sum up at the end, or even for the teachers to ask the panel a question, because I think it's really important to get something back from it. But something was mentioned when Brian, you mentioned about place. And one of the things I get asked about is, because of my role, I'm in a really unique role where I can shape spaces and make places. Well, these guys make the places. But someone asked me recently, what does success look like about our placemaking in the city centre? And I thought about it, and I thought it's not about success, it's about failure. And it's been touched on a bit today, quite a bit today. I think our places and spaces, if they look the same today, in 5, 10, 15 years, 20 years' time, we will have failed because we're not reflecting our diverse communities. And that's been touched on today. And I thought about, what you were saying, Eddie, same with me, my family's Irish. How do our places and spaces and buildings do that? So can I ask you the question to start this one off really as well on this bit? Do you think the sector's going to look different? Or do you think we'll be still talking about the profile in the next 5 years, that what this sector does look like in terms of diversity?
So this is an age-old question, and I get asked it a lot. And there's a lot of rooms that I'm in where we have this conversation. And I've heard it said that when we stop asking the question, we will truly have achieved diversity. And there's some merit to that. But actually, will the sector truly look different in 5 years? Yes. 100%, categorically yes, because we have people like the people that are on the panel with me, like yourself, Simon, like the people that are in this room that are actually taking those steps forward to make those changes. We've got people that are pushing forward the national site standard. We've got people that are pushing forward all of these other initiatives that will make that difference, so that we have not just I've got a really close friend who makes up she tells me a significant statistic where only 1% of all electrical engineering firms are run by women. And she is one of those 1%. Her name is Ruth. Now, that 1% is something that needs to change. And I know that that's changing because we're thinking about it. We're bringing the next generation forward. I've been at this summit last year as well. And it's so amazing in the West Midlands that we have such an amazing, diverse community, like you said, the places that we're shaping and making them feel like they're our communities. I've been born and bred in the UK, but my parents came from India when they were teenagers. And I now see that actually the communities that we live in and that we are part of are reflected in the buildings that we're in. And that's starting to reflect in the industry and on site. We've got toilets for women. We've got PPE for women. This is not something that's been done before. The sites are more diverse. We've got a hugely diverse range of students here today. I've got a young lady from Ormiston Academy who said she wants to be a carpenter. That's phenomenal. I think that is absolutely astounding in comparison to where we were 5 years ago, and in particular where we were 10 years ago. And when I started in construction, one of the first ever senior meetings I was in, the senior team, I was in my 20s, asked me to go make the tea and coffee. And I was there as what was that back then, the CDM coordinator. So a very important role, a statutory role under legislation. And they asked me to make the tea and coffee because I thought I was a secretary. Phenomenal, right? If someone did that to me now, I'd say, yeah, sure. I'd make it anyway, then tell them who I was. But back then, it was a thing that we had to really think about.
Brilliant. And you're right, you got the panel here, but you got people in the room as well. You've got Mohammed and the hard work you're doing through SIBI. It's inspirational, and what Errol's doing as well. I've just been told I've got 5 minutes. I could talk forever. So I want to quickly, and I'll start with Eddie.
Hang on, I thought you were taking...
No, we're going to do it this way. You've got to be quick because I am going to take a question. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice about your career, what would it be? And pass it down the line, please.
I think that piece of advice would be to be braver. People are worried often about making mistakes, and I would say don't worry about making mistakes. Get out, do something, throw your heart into something, and if it doesn't work out, you can always try something else.
Thanks. I would say definitely, I think you can look at some of the panel here and say that, yeah, there's planners and construction industry. It's getting on the low level. Push yourself. You can start be doing GIS stuff, so geographical bases. You can be doing backroom stuff in terms of admin. Get yourself in the door. Get yourself known. Work your way up. You don't always have to go in at the highest level. Just get around people, ask questions, and make yourself known. And then your career will align, or just follow up with that.
Okay, my advice would be find something you love to do. You'll always be better at it. Don't focus overly on salary. That's important. Make sure you pick something that you can be passionate about. And if you don't get it right, construction's amazing for being able to pivot and go and try something else as well.
Thank you, David. Yeah, I think you work hard, believe in yourself, and don't focus on your mistakes. So I think that's it.
I would say don't be scared. And I'm going to come back to what I said at the beginning. Remember the 3 things that you're here to do today. Learn something new, meet someone new, and learn about a new career. So talk to someone. Don't worry about what they're going to say or what they're going to think of you, because there is no stupid question in construction. Trust me. And also, we've talked about, we've all mentioned it, all the obvious careers in construction, the architecture, what we call the professional services, the white collar jobs and the trades. But there's also other careers. I've got 2 of my marketing team here today. They consider themselves working in construction. I've got my project and skills manager here today. He considers himself working in construction, but none of them have traditional construction roles. So come and talk to them as well around what else you could be doing in construction.
Thank you. Have you got a question? Tell us what your name is.
And then your question.
Marcus, what's the best way to get in construction?
Ask Damini.
I think I've monopolised this. Best way to get into construction, go and find out what you want. Speak to your head of careers, speak to your teachers, speak to your parents, your family, anybody that you know that is in construction, and just follow what you love. I think you mentioned it earlier as well. Follow your passion and absolutely go for what you love. You'll find a place in construction. It exists. We need you. Come.
And you keep talking to contractors. You know, you'll see plumbers, electricians, engineers. You know, write to people, send emails to people. I often get CVs sent to me from young people who want to work in the industry, and I love seeing that. It's absolutely brilliant because you can tell there's an enthusiasm there. People want to move forward. So I think that if you draft yourself a CV and you reach out to contractors, it's a very easy way of getting responses. And don't be disappointed. Reach out to 50 of them. Don't be disappointed if you don't hear a response from all of them. But you just keep trying. You have to be hard-headed and keep trying.
Thank you.
But that draws the second panel to a close. Can we give a massive round of applause to our panellists? They've been absolutely fantastic.